So good to see everyone. Thanks for joining. Hope everybody had an okay day. Yeah, so this week, this is session 2 of this Mind and Its Potential class. And those that weren't here last week, last week we mostly spoke about kind of a summary of where we'll go with the course a little bit, and then mostly focus on the nature of the mind. So this course kind of touches on briefly, kind of gives some context of the Buddhist view of the kind of nature of the mind, or kind of fundamental qualities and how the mind is understood in Buddhism. And then throughout we'll kind of look at the kind of some of the ways that the tradition categorizes or kind of labels how our mind functions, and in doing so then kind of gives us a framework for, what would you say, kind of giving us the ability to kind of parse out like what's going on. So instead of kind of like one metaphor I've heard, like kind of a vague soup, or maybe it's very overcooked soup where we don't even really know can't tell what the ingredients are. It's just a big soup. We kind of have a vague kind of telling of the experience of our mind. And whereas these categories can maybe seem like a little bit technical, and as further you go into the Buddhist path, the more and more lists you'll encounter as a learning device. But allows us to kind of separate the way our mind functions, to also kind of help us not identify so strongly, so kind of be so fused and identified with our experience, where we can start to kind of see, oh, this is the function of anger, this is the function of feeling, this is the function of discernment, this is this is the function of recollection or memory, that allows us to stay, like when we talk about practicing mindfulness, the Tibetan word, more closely related, kind of memory. It's like a drempa. It's like like kind of memory in the moment kind of thing. So instead of me, like, I have to be mindful now, like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna kind of shift, kind of rely on the mental aspect of my mind that allows me to be able to stay present and stay with them, stay with something, keep attention on something. So it can really start to diffuse some of the pressure, kind of a vague, fuzzy kind of relationship with our experience, and give us more precision in how we can work with our mind. So be a little bit like, whoa, a little technical. And we'll do a few. We'll start with some of the shorter lists tonight, and just take what makes, a ding happens or a light kind of shines, go with that, and find whatever is useful, and don't have to worry about it too much. It's something that we can keep kind of coming into more. But I'll try to hopefully make it somewhat digestible. And so then we'll later on in the course we'll talk about different ways of kind of approaching our experience. We'll also look at some metaphors for the Buddha nature, our potential for awakening, this kind of profound kind of goal that the Buddha shared as a reality that he found, not a reality that he created the reality was there before Buddha existed, or before Buddha was even alive. It was the reality that he discovered and has been able to start a communication and kind of a lineage of kind of a living wisdom tradition. Yeah. So last week we talked, so some of the key points real quick, and then I thought we could just mention some of the points yesterday. Maybe we can do a meditation while it's still a little bit early and fresh, instead of waiting till the end of the class. Yeah, and so I won't go too much into it, but just the basic idea, that the basic definition of mind, when we talk about awareness, the two kind of prime qualities, basic qualities that come up are clarity and knowing, clear and aware. That's every moment of our experience, there's just a basic clarity that's just naturally there without our effort, and a ability for the mind to know or to be aware. And this kind of is the backdrop of all of our experience. And we talked about the metaphor of this kind of clarity and awareness is like a movie screen, where the kind of all the details and activity and emotions and sensations and thoughts and narratives and storylines and history, all the stuff, aspirations, all our hopes and dreams and everything is playing out on the movie screen, but underneath the movie screen is this kind of clear awareness. So if we can start to break free of kind of the river of narrative that's constantly going in reactivity, we can start to touch into this basic clarity of awareness. And it, fortunately for us, has these kind of qualities of kind of peacefulness, spaciousness. Like space, it just accommodates everything. It's neutral. So, space doesn't really have a say in what's in space. It just accommodates everything. So there's kind of this neutral space from which everything arises. Another metaphor is like if we're trying to notice the space in the room instead of the objects in the room. So normally we're kind of focused on the objects in the room, but can we sort of tune into the actual space in the room and be aware of that basic space? And so from within that basic space, anger arises, frustration, disappointment, fear, joy, generosity, flower, whatever. That quality of space is in that experience. Yeah. And coming back to the ideas, the words for meditation, bhavana, meaning kind of literally meaning to cultivate, or the Tibetan word for meditation, gom, meaning to become familiar with. First learn how to recognize that spaciousness, the quality of simplicity and clarity, and then slowly begin to kind of stay with it and become more familiar with it, instead of being more and more familiar with the reactivity of the mind, the content of the mind, becoming more of that kind of basic spacious nature of the mind, until we can start to apply deeper insight and kind of plummet steps and realize that that's who we are, and that basic pure kind of clear awareness is actually who we are. It's actually our true self-image, or deepest self-image. So beyond story, beyond um, identity, comparativeness, whatever. That there's this kind of timeless kind of purity there. It's our basic nature. That's accessible over time in an experiential way, not in belief. So thought maybe we could do one of the meditations of this course is to try out this kind of spacious kind of space-like nature of mind. So I thought we could maybe start maybe 15, 20-minute meditation if people are okay. And yeah, experiment, try it out. Yeah, and one of the beautiful things about this kind of nature of mind is that we can let go of some of our resistance. So some of it, like we feel like we have to resist things and have to kind of figure it out or have to change something or work something out. But one way we can start to relate with ourselves, relate with our present experience, is to just drop the resistance itself and start to just relax in the present and allow whatever's in present for us to have some space to breathe, to be there as best we can, to our capacity in that moment, and see what happens. Kind of have a bit of a curiosity and openness, even to something. Maybe there's something that's very repetitive for us that continuously comes up in our day. Maybe taking a moment and just having a fresh, open curiosity and allowing whatever is arising for us just to be there for some time and see what happens. And sometimes they'll say because everything's another kind of quality of reality, I guess, is everything will change. Everything's in movement. Everything will kind of pass, and releasing some of that kind of compression and resistance to what we're experiencing, or distraction, or whatever, and have can maybe allow things to kind of move through more naturally. So we won't actually have to do anything with what's coming up. We can allow them to come and move through as best we can. Yeah, and so that's kind of one of the qualities of this meditation practice, is to start to develop that capacity in ourselves to be able to hold our experience in our awareness, and without a sense of fusing with it, identifying with it, where we can't see like I am angry, instead of there's anger. Oh, there's a feeling of anger arising. Yeah. So with the meditation, one approach that I've been taught that I personally practice, so I'll just share that, is to kind of let the body be a bit of an anchor to our experience. So we'll kind of settle into the body and sensation in the body. Because sensation is also immediate. It's non-conceptual. It's just right there. So when we talk about following the breath, what we're talking about is following the sensation of the breath, the feeling of the breath, and as it moves through. So if you're comfortable, I'll kind of guide, kind of like a body scan away. And if working with sensation in the body isn't comfortable, you don't have to just go to whatever is comfortable for you, maybe following the breath, or can be helpful to follow if there's sounds. You can just kind of open and allow your awareness kind of to settle with sound around you. And then once we settle a little bit, well, then we'll just open out. So we'll settle in sensation of breathing. And from there, we'll just kind of allow our awareness to open out and try to connect with a bit of a sense of spaciousness. And we'll spend a few short time with that. Any questions?
Would you like me to share taking refuge and generating bodhicitta?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, actually, so I have the prayers up, and I added the 4 measurables to it. Can everybody see? And so we start with this refuge and aspiration for bodhicitta. Go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all beings have happiness in its causes. May all beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all beings never be separated from pure joy. May all beings abide in equanimity, free from bias of attachment or aversion. So while we're meditating, if it's helpful if you want to turn away from your screen to look at the screen, it might be nicer to not be facing the computer. And so coming into a comfortable position. It's relaxed and upright. And it's turning our attention to our breath. Just having a natural breath, but making sure we're not breathing too shallow. And maybe paying particular attention to the quality of the out breath. Allow the out breath to be a process of settling, relaxing into the body. And if you like, you can try to bring part of your attention down to the sit bones, the pelvic floor, your legs, your feet. Sensations of sitting on your seat or your cushion. Sensations in the legs. And try to begin to connect with or settle into a sense of ground. Into the ground below as you breathe. And if you like, you can bring your awareness up into the trunk of the body. Begin to become aware of the sensations or feelings in the trunk of the body as you breathe. I'm just trying to have a bare awareness, not getting involved in story. Just trying to have a quiet, present awareness to whatever sensations or feelings are there. I'm not judging or trying to change anything. Just breathing and being aware. And then we can begin to our awareness to spread to the rest of our body, extending out into the arms, to the legs, the head. Eventually becoming aware of the sensations and feelings throughout the body as a whole. Trying to quietly be with movement of sensation and feeling of the entire body as we breathe. And if it feels comfortable, maybe try our awareness to kind of open out in the sense of spaciousness. Try not to judge or want to change anything that's arising. Not any sensations or sounds or thoughts, feelings. In this kind of spacious field of awareness to move through. We can try to bring a feeling of acceptance or equanimity towards whatever is arising. As best we can. Sometimes it's helpful to think of our awareness as like the sky. Whatever's arising in the sky doesn't affect and change the sky itself. Things can come and go, move through naturally. And the sky stays open and free and accommodates. Okay. We can begin to start to come out of our meditation. And slowly begin to move the body. Stretching if you need to. So how was that for folks?
It's good. It's a little late for me. I was a little drowsy.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I'm in the earliest time zone. Yeah. Yeah, in many ways, it can be kind of one of the more important steps in terms of working with our experiences, being able to kind of touch into what's going on, what's present, like what's in our systems, in our minds, in our bodies, and stopping that initial resistance or distraction or kind of jump to kind of try to figure something out, like maybe getting a pause and kind of being with something um, without judgment for initially, maybe with some curiosity or openness or acknowledgement, just simple acknowledgement of what's going on with us is a bit of an acceptance of that can create some space, and then moving from there, and either applying something or kind of checking in with ourselves, or like with this practice, just allowing it to kind of just move through on its own. Sometimes we don't actually have to do much with what's coming up for us at all, other than allow it to come up and let it run its course. Yeah. So going from this space into the kind of details, so from the screen to the actual activity, we'll kind of transition into. So in the tradition, we talk about mind. We have what's called minds and mental factors, or mental functions. And so when we talk about, when we say word minds, they're kind of speaking kind of again, kind of the backdrop, this kind of passive, basic functions of awareness itself. And they usually break these into 6. So we have the 5 sense consciousnesses. So eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, taste, or taste consciousness, and sensory bodily consciousness. And then what they call a mental consciousness, and this can be conceptual or non-conceptual. And so the five sense consciousnesses, so our sensory experience, these are considered non-conceptual. So when we see a shape, when we hear a sound, when we taste a flavor, when we smell a fragrance, those are immediate non-conceptual experiences. And in the Buddhist tradition, it's interesting, they call them consciousnesses themselves. So we have the eyeball, it's there's the sense organ, the biological organ, the eyeball. Then there's what they call an eye consciousness. So it's the consciousness of sight, and then the object that's being seen. So sight awareness, the hearing awareness, taste awareness, feeling awareness, smelling awareness. Yeah, then there's this primary kind of mental consciousness that for us is usually just a conceptual consciousness. Non-conceptual consciousness comes with training, a lot of meditation training in the development of non-conceptual awareness. So that's a very, very deep experience. But that transition, that non-conceptual experience is what makes liberation, like nirvana, permanent. So we'll start with a concept about impermanence, or a concept about an idea of emptiness, or a concept that we're working on, that we're trying to understand more and more deeply. And that conceptual understanding gets stronger and stronger over our path, until it becomes a very firm conviction, and a kind of irreversible kind of conceptual clarity or understanding. So it goes from just like kind of vague, like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, to like an irrefutable kind of truth that that doesn't come through faith, but comes through direct personal insight. Like, I know that from my gut. I know that I know that's true from down to my bones, because I've really processed it and analyzed it, and it becomes this kind of deep personal wisdom. So we know that things change. We know that impermanence is a kind of fact of life, fact of reality. But the deeper and clearer we are in understanding that truth, the more it actually impacts our experience. So like the reality of it and our lived experience start to match up closer and closer as we develop our kind of wisdom. And that's still going to be conceptual for most of the path, and then eventually there's we use that deep conceptual wisdom and merge that with non-conceptual meditation practice. So when we develop our ability for non-conceptual presence, deepen our present awareness and clarity, and then we use a strong conceptual wisdom and understanding, and those merge together, then we'll have a non-conceptual direct insight. And that develops until it becomes so powerful that it can't be reversed. So once we see reality in this kind of direct non-conceptual way, we can't unsee it. It just becomes who we are, becomes a part of it. It's completely embodied, inseparable from our experience. Hmm. Yeah. So it's a powerful component of mental consciousness, and something that in terms of the Buddhist goal of knowledge, we're using conceptual wisdom, we're using our thinking process to eventually lead us to this kind of non-conceptual union with reality. And that's what they call nirvana, eventually enlightenment, when it's fully developed, liberation, freedom, fulfillment. Yeah, so so in terms of the five sense consciousness, those are passive. They're just kind of happening. So again, it's just a shape. It's just a bare kind of recognition of data. Of sensory data, and then what accompanies these kind of main minds, they call them, are these always present mental factors. So in every moment of our experience, we also have these kind of dysfunction of the mind. And there's five are contact, discernment, feeling, intention, and attention. And so contact is just the basic contact with an object. So we can't know something unless we make initial contact with it. One example is, if we want to make a phone call, we have to make contact with it. There has to be contact there. So it's a basic thing. And when we have contact, then discernment kind of makes out what it is. So it's a very basic moment-to-moment discernment of the object that we're making contact with. So it's discerning the qualities of an object. And then based on that contact and discernment, then there arises a feeling either of it's attractive to us or kind of averse to it, it's frightening to us, threatening to us, or irritating to us, whatever. We pull back, or we have a neutral feeling. And neutral feeling is actually a feeling. Maybe it's kind of numbness, or we're just kind of like blah with it, or there's some sort of it's not neutral in the sense it's neutral, but it is an active feeling itself. Maybe like numbness could be or on the scale like apathy or non-caring. And then intention, sometimes volition. This is kind of the mind intentionally moves towards something. It makes an intentional kind of act. So sharing. From this book, Geshe Tashi's hearing about Buddhist psychology. It's kind of a nice digestible. It's about 130 pages. It's a little bit more in depth than this program, but it's a great book that kind of just kind of get understanding of what we'll kind of go through in this course, just a little bit more in depth. And here. So Geshe Tashi says, once feeling is present, intention moves our mind in a certain direction. So intention is the factor or function that actualizes what feeling is initiated. If the feeling generated upon contact with an object is attraction, intention moves the mind forward toward the object. For example, I smell a ripe mango in the shop I'm passing, and the feeling of attraction arises. Intention is the shift in the mental process toward buying it. So it's kind of like our more subtle motivation, like the mind just kind of moves, like, why do I notice that? Why does my attention kind of go towards this? Um, um,
Justin,
yeah.
I have,
Barbara?
I have a question.
Mhm.
So is intention is like action?
Yeah, so it's karmic. Yeah, it's kind of, intention is karmic action, so it's a volitional kind of,
To do something, to,
yeah.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, so like we have like with the example of the mango, we're in a store, there's a sensory smell of mango. There's so that's that's what contact. So we make contact with the fragrance. And then there's the mind discerns, like, okay, that's sweet mango. And then there's a feeling of, if you like mangoes, everybody does. If one likes mangoes, then there's a kind of attraction to it. So the it's like, I smell mango. Mango is good. I like feeling pleasure. Okay, I go towards mango. Yeah. And so that I go towards, that's the kind of karmic intention, the intentional action that has, that's creating a path, like, it's creating a pathway. So next time I'm in the store, I know where the mango section is, and maybe I go to the mango section and I get a couple more mangoes, and so now I'm creating a path. I'm creating a habitual kind of karmic pathway. Or I walked by a person on the street and I had an unpleasant, or experience or whatever, and I see that person again on the street, make contact, the shape, I discern, oh, that's the person. A feeling arises, fear or mistrust or whatever, and then there's a karmic movement based on that feeling. Right. Yeah. So it's kind of a motivational force, or kind of volitional force. That's karmic. And then the last of the five always present mental factors or mental functions is attention. So that's Kishitashi said that. Yeah, attention is obvious, which focuses the mind on a specific object to the exclusion of other objects. Attention is a factor that filters information. So considering the vast amounts of sensory information we receive every moment, imagine our experience if we could not focus on one thing and exclude others. Our minds may skip from object to object from one moment to the next, but within a given moment, the mind attends to a single object, and it is this always present aspect that is pertinent here. Through meditation, of course, we can enhance this attention and learn to direct it voluntarily and sustain it indefinitely, and this becomes a powerful tool for liberation. So every moment of mind, there's contact, discernment, feeling, intention, and attention. And so, the path of waking up is starting to wake up to when we talk about waking up to what's present to us, these, we're waking up to how we feel. What are we making contact with? Where is our attention? And where is our intention? The reactivity. Going. Yeah, and these factors stay with us even in enlightenment as well. So a Buddha has the same factors, but they're kind of transformed into kind of wisdom activity. So they're radically different, but like like the feeling aspect of mind transforms into this kind of equanimity or kind of resourcefulness that can benefit, richness that can benefit others. The discernment is this kind of discerning wisdom that can ripen and benefit others, and all it. So from somebody who's awakened, these kind of transform into supportive kind of activities that only serve to awaken others. Makes sense. So intention, instead of it, me just being like, oh, I like mango, the intention kind of turns into enlightened accomplishment. So it's accomplishing awakened activity for the benefit of others. And maybe give you one more list this evening. And so the next group mental functions that's taught, they're called object ascertaining mental factors. So these are not necessarily present in every moment, but they're often kind of in our experience. So aspiration, appreciation, recollection, concentration, and intelligence. And there's some similar kind of overlaps, but these ones are a little bit, it's like they're getting stronger. So aspiration is like intention, as it moves us towards an object of attachment or away from an object of aversion. Aspiration is the mind that wishes to engage in a particular activity and takes a strong interest in the process. It might be conscious, discursive decision, or occur at an unconscious, pre-linguistic level, but aspiration differs from intention because it's a result of the many processes occurring and it's not always present. So aspiration functions as a basis for enthusiasm, an important part of our Buddhist practice. For example, hearing that it's possible to end samsara, we become inspired and aspire toward that achievement. And then the second one, appreciation. So aspiration is the wish to attain or possess that object. So I'm aspiring, aspire towards something. And appreciation develops that aspiration. So it's seeing something as worthwhile. Yeah, so it's similar to feeling, but appreciation takes this one stage further in recognizing the quality in the object that's triggered that feeling, and doing so moves the mind toward holding the object. Yeah, and then recollection, so it's the ability for the mind to come back to the object. So without recollection, we can never know an object for more than one moment. It's the ability of the mind to return to the object again and again. And then concentration is the ability of the mind to stay on an object from moment to moment. So if recollection brings us back to the object, concentration has a sense of holding an object. Yeah, so these are like when we say I'm going to concentrate, this is talking about more of a subtle kind of ability or of the mind. It's not necessarily concentration, if that makes sense. Yeah, sometimes we might think of concentration as like a conscious activity, but here concentration is merely the ability of the mind to remain on the object. And then intelligence, in this context, is the ability of the mind to examine an object and determine its value by seeing that the object has certain characteristics that make it attractive or repulsive. In determining the characteristics of the object, this mental factor has a degree of certainty. So other mind states muster information about the object, but this mind state makes decisions based on kind of intelligence about the object. And these are neutral, so that we can aspire towards something harmful, we can appreciate. So one of the examples Geshe Tashi gives is stealing. So the mind that precedes the action of stealing needs some kind of aspiration. It needs recollection of what you're doing, concentration as well, staying on the task, and intelligence that that's kind of clarity and decision on what you're doing. And the same for the act of generosity. So there's an aspiration. Our minds can be aspirational towards the benefits of giving, can appreciate it, can remember and bring our recollect it, can stay with the kind of feeling of generosity and kind of have a clear kind of decision and discernment about it. So we can see how this plays out in terms of, oh yeah, Barbara. Mm-hmm.
So they can be either virtuous or non-virtuous.
Right. Yep. Yeah, these can be used in the direction. Yeah, and so we can see how these kind of play out in our the spiritual path in this tradition. We have to have some aspiration, learn about the path, develop appreciation, take that aspiration, appreciation makes it stronger. Recollection kind of can help, and these aren't necessarily all like sequential order. So like we can have the appreciation, which makes us recall or recalling qualities of the path, makes us appreciate and aspire stronger, which allows, if we have strong appreciation towards something, we're able to focus on it. So if we're really drawn to something, find it value, if we value something, we have this natural kind of attraction towards it, or aspiration towards it, or concentration will be easier. I'll be able to, I can learn, if I'm studying something I want to study, I'm able to study a little easier. And something I don't have any aspiration or appreciation for. I had a research, I'm in the master's program right now. I had a research class that I had no aspiration or appreciation for. I'm so glad it's over, but I had to concentrate and recall things, and drum up just enough intelligence to pass the course. Yeah, and so our decision kind of convictions kind of grow stronger. So we see how these kind of functions of the mind we really kind of turn towards with us. And the same in kind of difficult patterns or destructive patterns, these kind of qualities are there too. So when we talk about, one way this tradition introduces working with emotions is starting to see the kind of the side effects of emotions. So like seeing the side effects of anger, so that we start to break free of this, our kind of unconscious appreciation or aspiration towards anger, because we can like things that are harmful, we're kind of magnetized to them, and we recall them, and we can focus on them. If I'm angry or something, I recall, let me count the ways, all of my reasonings, and so these kind of mental factors are happening there. So one way of starting to kind of break that kind of chain or like flow is to work on its opposite, start to see the downsides of it, see how it's harmful, how it's harming me, harming my life, going against my values and so forth. So you're starting to create a different kind of pathway of aspiring towards being less angry, aspiring, appreciating, wanting to move away from that harmful pattern.
And is that then where intelligence comes in
Yeah.
to make that decision?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so in terms of kind of breaking free from, these categories are starting to clarify some of the operations of the mind. So it's like, why can't I stop? Why am I prone to anger? We can go a little bit back to one of the things, the intention. We're kind of we've habitually had a feeling and habitually had an intentional movement of mind in a certain path, kind of neural pathways. And I feel like it's a very similar idea. And those are the kind of habit is being strengthened by these functions of the mind. So even if we're not even necessarily conscious of what our true relationship is with that emotion, like anger or anxiety and so forth, you can see some of the kind of magnetism or the pull that's kind of happening. And so like for example, with anxiety, anxiety is a protective response. It's making contact, having a sense of danger, moving into a fight or flight kind of response, or a protective response. And when anxiety becomes, and that actually can be very helpful and can be wise, but when it starts to become kind of creating dissonance in our life or maybe dysfunction in our life, when it's arising in places that it's not helping me, not serving me, and maybe there is an actual danger in that moment, it's just kind of a habitual response. There's storylines, the intelligence that's getting created that's fueling the anxiety. There's the decisions like, oh, this might happen to me, so I need to respond in this way. So this is scary. I may like maybe like the public speaking. Yeah, I may say something stupid and everybody's going to hate me, and that would be terrible, and I'll never survive it. There's these kind of functions are happening. And so I'm making a decision based on kind of faulty intelligence in a way. Or at least, it's just one side of the story. Maybe there are different options. Like, okay, yeah, maybe I say something ridiculous, but is it, could there be different outcomes? Or am I looking? Is my anxiety pattern, the narrative, the intelligence, the aspiration, these kind of components that are kind of pumping up that, fueling that anxiety, and keeping that pattern going? Is it the full story? Or not? Yeah. Barbara?
I have another question, and I don't know if it fits here, but is anxiety the aversion poison or the attachment poison? Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
Yeah. So it's a preservation response. What would they generally say? It's kind of regarded as
And
that.
when it goes beyond just keeping us safe, unreasonable anxiety, I guess.
Yeah.
It helps me when I put him in a camp, either, that's attachment. Oh, that's aversion. And I can never figure out where unreasonable anxiety, where that fits.
Yeah. It's definitely got an attachment side of it, because it's a contraction. There's a threat to self. So if you're not attached to self, then there's no, there isn't right? There's no threat. So there is a bit of a contraction. Usually is a sense of danger, fear. I don't know, can aversion, is anybody familiar with anxiety? Have any thoughts? Is there aversion? Could there be aversion in? I mean, I know.
There can be.
Yeah. So what are you going to say?
Yes, there can be a portion of aversion within anxiety.
I know it kind of goes back. I know for me, maybe I might get frustrated with my anxiety, or frustrated with the object of my anxiety. But generally, we kind of define it as a fear response. Yeah, there's a fear. There's a threat which probably has some aversion towards it, like tiger. Yeah, maybe it's a mix. Yeah. Like, do you get angry, or is you just really scared of the tiger? Doesn't matter. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, aversion and attachment are all fear. Am I correct?
Yeah, taken from a place. Yeah, I've heard one Tibetan Lama kind of I was familiar with the Four Noble Truths, like the truth of suffering, the cause of suffering, the end of the cause of suffering, the path to end that cause. He was like, hey, you could also maybe say the truth of fear, the cause of fear, the end of the cause of fear, the path to lead out of fear. Because there is a contraction into oneself. There's in a very basic, it's the survival instinct, maybe one way of looking at it. There's a basic self and other kind of duality that's happening. And then from the sense of, it's like Robert Thurman likes to say, it's me against the universe. So I'm going to, based on that kind of very deep, kind of rooted fundamental anxiety, which is one way I've heard like the deepest level of suffering. There's just kind of an unease or like an anxiety of existence itself, just existing as a separate entity. It just creates some anxiety that, even if we're not aware of it, some tension, contraction. And then because I'm a separate me, I'm going to go towards things that reaffirm me, protect me, fulfill this whole, fulfill me, and because I'm not whole. So that would be kind of the attachment response or kind of attraction response. And then I'm going to repel against or destroy or try to conquer whatever that doesn't affirm, protect, my sense of self.
So some of each.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
It can be, yeah. Thank you. That helps. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, and so like with anxiety, with any of the emotion, in terms of working with emotions, I mean, it's kind of jumping into next week, but we don't want to react to the reaction. So like, okay, I'm feeling anxious. Then I can also get angry about feeling anxious. And so now I'm really starting to create a loop. And then like, maybe I get frustrated with my frustration about being anxious. Like, oh man, I'm feeling anxious again. Why do I always react this way? Oh, why do I get frustrated about being frustrated about, why do I get frustrated about being, there can be this kind of loop of aversion. That's neat. That for me has always been real sneaky. Like I'm a real slow learner with this. And I've used Buddhism masked as aversion towards my experience. Like I'll use sophisticated, like, oh, I'm going to apply, get angry at what perceived as a cause. Yeah. And so coming back to what we were talking about earlier with the kind of approach with meditation, trying to be with something without the aversion or attachment or constriction, just trying to have an open kind of curious mind. So the anxiety's coming up. Oh, anxiety's here. What does it feel like? Interesting. What's the sensations in my body? And in the kind of Western psychology tradition, they talk about, this has served a purpose for me at some time. It got me through a hard time, and I've just learned to rely on it as a response to get me through things. But like as Barbara mentioned, like it becomes unreasonable or it becomes habitual or it's holding me back from my life. Like I want to do this, but my anxiety keeps coming up in this way and it's in a way. So one way of trying to have a more compassionate relationship with it is to maybe see where it was valuable. Like, oh, this just came up. This is something that I needed at some time to kind of get me through. But at the same time, maybe not so appropriate all the time. And so how can I start to have a more compassionate, wakeful relationship with it? Kind of relationship. And I think sometimes then that starts to rewire our intelligence. So instead of me just being like, it's almost, in this tradition, we talk about turning obstacles and opportunities. If we can suspend that kind of judgment or aversion, then I think it allows kind of new kind of intelligence, new process to start to happen. So it actually can become an opportunity. So instead of anxiety coming up and then I just waste the moment with my kind of frustration or kind of reactive response, we can suspend that and kind of open to it, and then maybe apply mindfulness, different supportive practices that it can help us with, like kind of feeling our feet on the ground, kind of coming into the present, having that curiosity to why is it arising, maybe bringing in new narratives about like, oh, maybe I can try a little bit, maybe I'll just try a little bit here, see if I can make it through, and then we start to kind of change our kind of narrative towards a relationship with it. Not, obviously not easy. It's a very powerful energy. Yeah, we have the reaction, but we can slow down the reaction about the reaction. Then we have a much more workable basis to start to cultivate kindness, compassion, wakefulness, and new kind of intelligence or wisdom. And it's interesting, like further along the path. So I was talking, this discussion is more kind of on the sutra level. Like further on the path, like when your capacity with meditation becomes greater, tantra starts to you're able to start to kind of tap into the basic energetic level of these emotions, and they actually become supportive. They almost become like fuel for your wisdom and clarity. And you're able to ride the mere energy itself of anger, passion, anxiety, at kind of more fundamental level, so that kind of the duality of the emotion is not there. It's not a question, actually. It just becomes interesting. But again, it's difficult. So it takes kind of gradual steps. Just got a few more minutes. Any kind of questions? Anything coming up from people that we can just check in with before we finish? Okay. It's right in the chat. Right in the chat. Maybe just take a moment and kind of tune inside, noticing any sort of aspiration or appreciation, anything that kind of struck you tonight, anything that felt interesting or helpful, inspiring. Maybe allowing some space, some interest or intention to arise, some sort of action you want to take, look into. Just acknowledging that. And just being with how you're feeling in the moment. And we can dedicate any seeds, any positive energy we may develop together, create together. Offering it out, sharing it, a great wish that it can be a great benefit for our awakening, so that we're able to give lasting value, benefit for others, help their awakening as well. Like, join and recite the short dedications tonight. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow. May that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. May our teachers have long, healthy lives, very beneficial lives. May projects of vision of Lam Zogram Shea, the PMT spiritual director, as well as the Dalai Lama, share and other teachers. May they be fruitful and benefit many. Well, thanks everybody. We sleep well. Still pretty early here.